use today. We'll be asking you 4 questions all along the session about different things, and we'll ask you to vote online. It's a very simple tool, and Nathan is going to share you how it works. So please go on your cell phones and connect to menti.com. Menti.com, and then please insert the code shown on the top, 597644. 597644. And that first question will come up. And we will look at the results of the first question in a few minutes. And the question is, what comes to your mind when talking about talent? Great. You see that somebody started voting, and so we like that. And things will come up, and we'll create a cloud of words over time. We'll see how things will grow. The more the words are used, the bigger they are. And so that will be a very great guidance for everybody. Congratulations. So let me start. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. There's 35 of us right now linked. We are really going to see more people coming up, and I'm very, very happy to have you here. What is bridging value? First of all, some of you know me for a long time. Some of you have known me since high school. Some have known me for a few weeks. But at Bridging Value we are a strategic thinking company where we pragmatically take on challenges from clients and turn them into business ecosystems. To solve a complex problem, you need to establish strong partnerships, and partnerships need caring, need pampering, need support, and that's what we do best at Bridging Value. And when we started looking at the changes that COVID brought upon us all, we started looking at the changes in sustainability, the changes in the city and the design of the cities, and we found that the cornerstone of the change is actually around talent. And that's when Nathan, our strategic partnerships associate, came up and with the idea of establishing a coffee break. Yes, it's a virtual coffee break. We all like coffee, and at least we tend to like coffee, or we have an opinion about coffee. And so we wanted to establish this very relaxed moment for us all to share ideas and feel comfortable to be non-judgmental. So people really wanted to engage, wanted to share more. So we turned out to friends, and the friends today that are going to be our panelists today are Carmen Herrada. She is one of the directors of Stanton Chase Executive Search. Enrique Rubio, the founder of Akin HR, a network of HR experts and practitioners, global partner, and Matthew Davies, who's in charge of the alumni and organization of IE in the U.S. and all of America, if I'm not wrong, right, Matthew?
Yeah,
sorry,
U.S. and Canada.
And U.S. and Canada. Okay, well, that's pretty big territory. Let's put it this way. And so, in order to introduce you briefly who we are, I'd say the other day preparing this panel, Matthew asked us, what is your characteristics? And I'm going to take that. And so I'm going to quote each one of you. And so Carmen is somebody that she said she's always very active. She's always doing something. You will never find Carmen in a dull moment. The second one is, like, if you think about Matthew, he's the guy that brings positivity and that constructive connections into any conversation. So if you feel that something is like it's a knot, it's like stuck in a certain position, he's the one that can solve it. And then Enrique can foster those connections that can take any idea to the next level. And when I turn to myself, I asked them, what do they think? And I said, like, maybe I'm a natural instigator. I just push people. I push the boundaries. I try to make people react and collect information and learn more. So I crave knowledge and crave understanding. So that's what brought us to doing this. So my provocation is right away to Carmen. Carmen, so what do you think, or what do you feel that's happening in executive search, and how are the companies changing after this disruption that brought upon us?
Okay, so thanks for the introduction, Giuseppe. So I work in Stanton Chase, so we've been normally doing executive search, and that was like 90% of the business until COVID-19. So what we are doing now it's that the companies, more than executive search, because we are not looking for people, what we are doing more now is assessment in the companies. The reason is because what we are doing is business continuity and crisis management. So we are talking every day with CEOs, I mean, with decision makers. And what they're realizing is that they don't need new people, but they need, and probably not even different people, but different with different skills. We have realized that what we need in the past is different now. I mean, it's like it's easier to be a manager in a situation where everything is like settled. We have the same software, that we have everything the same, than in a crisis. So that's what we are seeing more in the market, that we are trying to change the skills of the talent. I mean, it's a different request. So that's what we are seeing currently.
So, Enrique, what is happening in your network then? Because you are exposed to so many different cultures, different angles, and you used a keyword the other day that made us all think deeply about this. So I'll let you develop about that.
Yeah, sorry, my desk was moving around. And, I think that one of the things that is happening right now is that because of this crisis, but especially because of the previous impact of technology and the many changes that we were seeing in the workplace, the kind of skills that brought people to the place where we are today are not enough to bring people to the place where they will need to be over the next few months or years. So I think my provocation, which is a reality, is the truth, is that even if we have been very successful with the way we have done things and the capabilities and the skills that we have embraced over all this time, years that have brought us to the place where we are today, those skills may be either obsolete by now, or they may be holding us back to achieve the things that we need to achieve, or even if they partially work, they may not be enough to sort of propel us forward. So my provocation to the audience is that you're going to have the mental, I have been talking about this for a while now, you have to have the mental flexibility to learn and to change. Learn the new skills that you need to learn, to change by leaving behind the things that are holding you back, and by embracing the new things. So that's my initial provocation, if you will.
Yeah, and Matthew, you were like IE being one of the top business schools around the world. You've seen deep questions and transformation as well. So what are the people looking for? What do they want to do? And how do you think that this is going to impact the culture of the people?
Yeah, well, first off, if you're not familiar with IE, it is a top university. It's based in Spain, but the community that goes there is 90% international, and everything from undergrad all the way through executive education. So the people at IE that I interact with in my role as the careers contact for North America are in a tremendously diverse array of backgrounds and industries, skill sets, and so forth. And what we really think is the most important skill set in this world of tremendous change and disruption is that people are prepared to continue to learn throughout their careers, that they have the skills required to actually absorb new knowledge and put it into practice. But one of the things that's really interesting about the time we find ourselves in is that people have to be able to present that to companies. We're seeing so many jobs that are being lost and that aren't going to come back, or will come back in different ways. And people are going to have a huge change from industry to industry as they move into whatever they can next. So how can they present this skill set of lifelong learning that will be transferable along with their other sort of specific job-specific skills that they've already trained in? And I think this is a question, since I'm sure we have an audience that's both on the talent side and the HR side. How are companies going to catch that? How are companies not going to lose the people who have the skill set of rapid learning, quality learning, as they review the many resumes that are going to come in for every open role?
Well, Matt, it's like, I think this tied the knots with what we're looking at. The changing culture, it's a changing culture of the company, it's changing how the people are going to portray themselves in the organizations. Enrique, you used the other day like a word that resonated with us all. It's called humanizing HR. Wow, like, you know, it sounds, when you hear it, it sounds like a conundrum. You know, something that is actually talking about human people and humans, and then actually you have to humanize it. So that's very interesting. So you might want to elaborate about that. And then another thing, and then we'll let the audience. I don't want to take time away from the audience. Carmen, you mentioned about something that, you know, the decision makers are going to be changing deeply, not only because of the people, but the positions, the role, the description of their assignments. So if you don't mind bringing a few comments, and then we're open for questions. And thank you for the first questions that are coming in the chat right away, and we're going to start taking them and commenting upon them. Thank you.
Yeah, so things that are changing that we are seeing, I mean, we have like, for example, before COVID, and we had like some high-level position that we were looking for. So one of the requirements was that the person had the ability to travel every month to Asia, right? So ability to travel every month, for a few days to Asia. After COVID, one of the things that we are going to see is that the business trips are going to be highly restricted, and this is not going to be for the next month. I mean, this is coming to stay. So what we are seeing more and more is that we have changed the job description, and now what we are looking for is somebody who is global, who has been living in Asia. So that's one of the changes that I'm doing. I mean, that 2 months ago I was looking for one specific profile, and now I'm looking for the same type of skills for the same company, but instead of being able to travel every month, somebody who has been living there. So that's one of the things, and that has a complete change in the profile, because before we were looking for, I mean, we cannot ask some questions like, can you travel? That means that can you leave your family? But we are looking for somebody with more experience. So it's good for senior talent. That's what it is. So that's one of the main changes that we are seeing now.
Enrique, humanizing HR.
Yeah, you know, it sounds a little bit like a paradox, right? Because you would think, you know, human resources should be about humans, and why would we humanize something that is already about humans? But the reality is that HR has not really been about humans. It's been more about processes and systems, and more about the business, which is okay, you know, that it is about the business, but it's, I think it's done all those things about being very much about the business and about processes and systems at the expense of taking care of people, including the business leaders of those businesses that they want to take care of. So when I say humanizing HR, I have been talking about something that is called the new value proposition of HR. And there are 4 elements. I'm not going to discuss all of them right now, but the first element is putting people first. If HR does not understand how people operate in this new world of work, if they don't understand what people want, if they don't understand what motivates them, how they want to engage at work, how they want to find meaning and happiness and joy at work, that's all the concept of humanizing HR. But if HR is not able to do that, then they are missing a gigantic opportunity to have their companies at the forefront of this, you know, for people kind of revolution that we have seen recently in the workplace. There are some concepts like culture and you know, employee experience, employee engagement. A lot of these things have come up very recently, you know, to the forefront of the conversation about people, but they're not new. However, HR has disregarded those sort of concepts for quite a long time. So to me, humanizing HR means refocusing the role of HR from processes and systems to people. And then you design processes and systems, not the other way around. You don't force people to fit into a box. You design the box, if that's the case, or the process or the system based on what people want and how people operate.
It's actually great what you're saying, Enrique. And we at Bridging Value, we always propose to talk, instead of HR, we talk about human potentials, because everybody in the different organization has the potential to contribute. And if it's put in the right position, it can actually really contribute actively. Right now, there's a major rainstorm around me, so I might have to change position. So just bear with me a second, but continue the conversation. We have some questions from the audience. The first one from Nicola Serra. Nicola, if you don't mind, like unmute yourself and then share the question.
Hi, so, I think good afternoon for all. I think Carmen already answered to my question. Was related to the attributes. Probably not all the things that bring us here are the ones that will take us where we want to go. So my question was related to the attributes that you foresee that will be necessary in the new normal. So I think that you already answered, so thank you for that. And I think was pretty clear from your side. I don't know if someone else wants to add any comment on that one. If you foresee something different than Carmen.
I just want to say a couple of things about that. One of them is that the technical skills, the shelf life of technical skills is shorter and shorter and shorter. Whatever you learn, whatever technical capability you're learning today may not be relevant in a couple of years from now, or maybe 5 years from now. Actually, there's research that shows that every 5 years you're going to have to relearn 35% of your skills. So that's technical skills, of course. Now, what remains relevant over time is the very human skills: creativity, curiosity, imagination, innovation, empathy, caring, negotiation, collaboration, all of those things that are human by nature, what used to be called soft skills, but they are not soft skills, they're human skills, and they are more difficult to learn than those technical skills. Those are the ones that are making a gigantic comeback, and those are the ones that are going to be sort of relevant over time. And so the message here to the audience is: don't get too emotionally attached to technical skills, but learn the human skills, because those technical skills that may be relevant today, they will probably be gone in 3 or 4 years from now. But the human skills that are the underlying foundation of those technical skills and the work that we do, those are the ones that are going to be not only doing having a comeback, but will remain important over time.
And fully agree from my side. I think if we are talking about talent, we are assuming that the learning agility is there. So yeah, everything technical or hard skills can be incorporated pretty easy with the people that we are talking about. But yeah, I think we need to think not only in the new normal, because we are not clear yet when it's going to happen, but also during this crisis, I think we are highlighting some attributes on the people that also we need. It's good to bring them to the conversation. For example, in my case, what I'm looking or seeing in my organization is, for example, the going above the line. Okay, so taking ownership about the things. It's a very unique attribute or behavior on the people, the way that they behave in front of this crisis. Okay, taking ownership about the things, going exactly as I said, above the line, going for more, taking a protagonic role instead of being just a viewer. No, let's say it that way.
We have some more questions from Eduardo Nunez. Before we go to you, Eduardo, just a second, and thank you for your questions. Nathan, can you share how the work mapping, the work cloud is actually developing? Can you share us all what are the voting, what's happening there, and then so we can actually shift to the next question. You can all see the Nathan's screen. And see, yeah, great. So we can see that potential is actually very interesting. It's a key word. I like that. It's actually very much aligned with what we see. People, career growth and opportunity, and then obviously future. We'll keep developing about this. Nathan, can you just shift to the next question if you don't mind? Okay. The next question is about
which skills have been become obsolete? Is by Eduardo Nunez.
So let's because Eduardo has a double comment. So if Eduardo, you don't mind, unmute yourself and then ask the question, which Carmen just mentioned, and your comments about humanizing HR. Eduardo?
Okay. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for doing this webinar, very dynamic, full of energy and great ideas. This is fantastic. Very well done. And my comments are to the intention of my question, before the question. The intention of the question is to go deeper into the area of skills. Because, for example, global mindset, we have had to have a global mindset for quite some time to succeed in the global marketplace. That is not exclusive of COVID-19. The global mindset has always been here. The ability to unlearn. I see your point. Perhaps what you mean is that in these circumstances, we have to be even more creative because we have more restrictions. Maybe that's the meaning, right? Because we've always had to have the ability to unlearn, but now perhaps the requirement, the bar goes higher, right? And the same happens to resilience. Life as an entrepreneur, life as a corporate executive, life as a young professional entering the workforce has not been easy, but maybe resilience now goes to a different level because of the world collapsing, right? And then I will not present those as new skills, but skills that become more relevant or require higher level of maturity. Am I making sense, Carmen?
Yeah. So so for example, you were asking, one of the questions was like, which characteristics have become obsolete? So I'm going to explain one. This week I had a conversation with one CEO that he's having a big problem. It's a family-owned company, huge family-owned company, over 1 billion, and he's having problems, right? And the problem is that for him, the top skill in his employees was loyalty, right? So and it's becoming the main problem now when in this situation. So he was like giving promotions to people who was every day there, people who were there every day at 7 o'clock and leaving the last one. So that they were like working during holidays. It was loyalty and commitment, but full commitment in life was the main characteristic in their employees. What is happening now is that their employees are almost unable to react to this situation because they've been always used to be like loyal, like to do like fighting. But now they have to be creative, so they are not creative. So what this type of companies, what they need is instead of giving priorities, because I've seen in this particular company that they've been firing people who were very creative because for whatever the reason, they were not so loyal to the company. Or so they are, now it's the time to have a more diverse team of employees. And that's something that we see in every company. If you go to any company, you see that the employees, even they may be from China, India, Spain, or Argentina. They are like, they have very common characteristics, or they are like very like very loyal, or very like process oriented, but they are all like that. So now what we need is more diverse teams.
Understand. And I will argue that company required to update the skills in any case before COVID-19. And because just with loyalty and without creativity, they were not going to succeed and become, well, they did $1 billion revenue, but nevertheless, I will argue that. But for example, I will add another skill, which is not very typical of the millennials and the younger people, which is the focus on safety and security and health. And I was 30 years old. I was 28. I was 34 at that point, at some point in my life. Now I'm 56. And of course, at that point, you believe that you're invincible. And nowadays, as an employer, what I would like to have is people that are very disciplined, very understanding of the risks that we have with the virus that is lethal. And then that's a skill that I would like to have in people that are creative, innovative, master technology, global mindset, but okay, who is mature enough, being 30 or 28, to pay proper attention to safety and health? Question mark, just to provoke. I leave it here.
I don't know if I agree with that, by the way. And if you allow me, somebody who, like we have some of the biggest companies in the world having been created by people who were 25 years old. Like right now we're in Google, and Google was created by a couple of guys who were in their 20s when they created Google. So I'm not sure that necessarily, age is a synonym of, lack of capabilities and whatnot. I think everybody has gone through a different experience, and some of them have been exposed, fortunately, to a wide array of of interesting things that have enlarged their capacity to intervene in health, in the workplace, in different things. So I'm not sure that age necessarily plays the biggest role in here. So I don't know, Eduardo, if I'm getting that correctly, but
you are not. I am not saying that age is a synonym of success. I am just saying that with age, you are more careful with safety and security.
Right, I understand what you're saying, Eduardo. It also, I think, addresses your next question about, what trends are being reinforced by COVID that are already coming up in the younger population. And I think that one of the reasons that you see perhaps younger professionals a little less cautious in their careers and in the approach they take to their work, it's because they grew up in an era where work was seen as a short-term opportunity. You would be at a company for, minimum 2 years and then see what happens. And then, you switch every 3 years, every 4 years, every 5 years. You can switch industries, you can switch cities, you can switch corporations, roles, and so forth. And companies have come to expect that. And the relationship between employers and the talent is much weaker. Talent is getting much less support over the long term that they can rely on from a company. And therefore they feel freer to take different risks that may benefit them, but not their employer. And I think that, we may perhaps see that reinforced by COVID, because we're seeing how the workforce is being disrupted. But we also may see the negotiation of a new agreement that does require companies to have more, to pursue more stable relationships with the talent that they bring in. You don't want to see the top talent that you brought in and trained leave for another opportunity, the way you see it all the time in the tech industry, for example.
That's a good comment. Thank you.
We have two questions. One from Luis and one from Pablo. So Luis, if you don't mind, unmute yourself. And before Luis, allow me to throw another provocation in the middle. One of the things we've seen is that we do not expect the teams to be as large as we used to. We expect it to be smaller, like no more than 8, maximum 10 people working from different locations, a different rhythm. And, and those skill set will be like taking on bigger and bigger challenges. So the work will be like the way the tasks are going to be distributed is going to be different. And so you need a different way to knitting the work of different people. So that's where the talent of the management, the talent of the visionaries, the talent of the people themselves working in the teams is a lot different. The level of stress within the team will be different from what we're seeing right now. And this is what we're seeing from bridging value perspective, and that impacts with our clients. But obviously, we're not the experts on HR, so we'll leave it up to the HR managers. Luis, please come up with your question. Thank you.
Hello again. So my question is pretty simple. If we can't go out and see people, for example, at the IE, if I would go there, it's for the networking, it's for the people that I'm going to meet there. How can we, for young people like me, that we are growing in our career, how could we do that now? How could we show our skills for that companies that we are interested in and this thing? And it's for the three of the opponents that we have today. So go on, whoever wants to answer that.
I think that actually there are great opportunities for networking that are being created by this environment. First off, I want to say, if you're thinking IE, I mean, we hope we're going to be open and in person and you can have that campus experience again and at other universities. I don't think that's going away. I think that will be back in time. But I do think that right now, when we're all at home and our communication has been leveled onto these virtual platforms, it's much easier to make an ask of someone's time. They don't have to leave their home. You don't have to take them to lunch. You don't have to meet them for coffee. You don't take them away from their desk. You can reach out to people now that you want to have conversations with. And it's much easier for them to say yes than it used to be. And I think that actually, if you're sort of creative in terms of who you are targeting and why what the reason is you can present to them for why they should talk to you, you can have conversations with people that maybe wouldn't have been available to you in the past.
Pablo, your question. Please unmute yourself and then, you know.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation and congratulations for the panel. My question is related also to Luis' last question. I'm seeing a lot of online training courses from universities and non-universities, formal and informal, and it seems to be a growing tool for training during the COVID, and who knows after the COVID. What is the view that companies, employers will give to these courses when compared to the traditional trainings, degrees in presence?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will let Matthew reply from his side, but I'm gonna, from an executive point of view, I will tell you. So what is gonna matter is how you manage the skill. So if you say that you are very good in, I don't know, in social media, that you've been doing like a course or a MBA about the social media, what we are gonna check, an executive search, what it's gonna do is check how good you are in Google. If you mention that you have a cybersecurity MBA master that now they are very requested, I mean, you can have the master, and that's gonna give the real fact that you have learned. But how you have used it, we can check it online. It's like, for example, I mean, I'm not from America, so in Spain, when you are gonna show that you speak English, you have to show that you have the B1, the B2, I mean, if you pass the exam in English. But of course, I mean, if you have studied in an American university, you don't need the title. So it's gonna be, if you ask what's the importance, I mean, of course, coming back to what Luis and Matt, they mentioned before, going to the university in a way in person, it's very important because you develop social skills on top of that, the hard skills, the technical knowledge. About the online training, it has some value, but you need to show it, how good you are in that. Matthew, do you have anything to add to that?
I think I didn't catch part of the question that was about how what is the difference in value between in-person education and online?
Particularly after the COVID, where many people are taking courses and the offer of online training is exponentially different and growing than what was before.
Okay, thank you. I think also that it's a matter of sort of quality control. I think that there is, not all certificates are equal, you know, and not all experiences are equal. And what is the sort of you can have really terrific online learning opportunities. You can have really terrific in-person opportunities, and both could not be good. So it is a matter of sort of how you show it. And I think Carmen's right. You have to demonstrate it through your community and your engagement there, whether it's through LinkedIn or professional associations, how you participate, your writing, your thought leadership, your the support you can provide people in your industry. So you have to demonstrate. I agree that it really is based on sort of what you get out of it, more than the format.
Yeah.
Claudia, you had a question that's very interesting, centered around loyalty, and and Carmen already answered a little bit on the chat, but I think it's a central point, because now I think talent is actually the way you interact. How do you manage, if you had like those negotiations at the coffee machine, or during like walking into somebody's office, now how do you do it? And so I think that's a different approach. Claudia, can you please ask the question, and let's bring it over to the panelists.
Yeah, thank you. By the question that came to me by asking how to measure it is not only in this hard fact to say, okay, what is the result? But I think the problem, also what you said about the CEO, the problem is not the real results, but the problem is that he doesn't feel his company anymore, because no one is there. Usually he was seeing, okay, this guy is here at 7, this guy is here at 7, so okay, they are loyal. And now they are in their home office, and they might be at their desk or they might not be at their desk. And so it's like, I actually ask myself, how can he feel that his employees are still loyal? So how do we measure loyalty in a more emotional, or in a more, how can we feedback? Maybe that's the question. How can we feedback commitment without being there like 20 hours a day? What are online tools, or how do we assure our colleagues and our bosses or anyone or our team, we are here for you? That's maybe the question.
I want to add something to that if I can. Those leaders will be steamrolled by reality, because I think they are living in a world that died many years ago. First of all, loyalty as a concept is not something that you can isolate from dozens of other factors. If you don't treat your people with respect, with decency, with tolerance, with love, with care, it doesn't matter how much you want them to be loyal. It doesn't matter how much you measure the time that they spend in the office. It's not the time that they spend sitting in the office. It is what they do in the time that they are spending in the office. There's a very interesting book called An Everyone's Culture. And in this book, the premise is that everybody that comes to work who is not finding meaning, joy, happiness, and unleashing their potential at work, they are sitting in the office, but their minds are not really there. So they are having like 3 jobs at the same time, even when they spend their physical time in the office. So this concept of loyalty is not a standalone concept. It goes together with many other things. For those leaders who think that loyalty is measured by seeing people in an office, either their companies will fail, or they will attract, mediocre talent. The good people may be there, but they will want to leave, at whatever time an opportunity they want, they can leave. Maybe they have people that are delivering only 10% of what they could potentially deliver, because they don't want to give any more, because they are being, the big brother is observing them and seeing what they're doing. So I think these leaders are, there are many of them. There are still many of them out there. They are living in an era that died many years ago, and that era should have never existed, by the way. Unfortunately, it was a different reality and it existed. But I think those leaders are leading companies from the 19th century and not the 21st century.
This is actually very central what you said, Enrique. Sorry if I take the time between Carmen and Matthew there. You already reacted. Let me bring an experience, a personal experience. It was like I've worked for a large corporation for more than 16 years. And one of my managers one day told me that, Giuseppe, you have to be here at 8:35 latest. Otherwise, you give a bad example to the others. This came up after, after signing a major agreement. We changed, big success and everything. And I told him, like, are you paying me for my time or for my ideas? Turn around, is like, well, okay, try to do the best, please. So the point is that here I heard on other meetings, it's like people are becoming either more effective by working remotely. Some of them are more engaged. Definitely, we have to change our skills. I don't know what it's going to be. We can imagine a life of hybrid relationships, like in virtual and in presence, but definitely always centered around making the team smaller, where people are really taking responsibility and ownership. Matthew, you mentioned ownership as a central point to measure their loyalty. Can you develop about that?
Well, I think it was brought up earlier, and I think that what you want is loyalty is sort of a permanent state of affairs, and I think that what we're seeing in this world is that people are working for themselves. They have to fend for their own, their own needs. They have to coordinate their work life with their spouse, with their children's demands, with their own ambitions and so forth. But so loyalty is a tough one in today's very changeable world. Ownership is something that, when you're there and you're working on something, you can say that this project is something, it's your baby, you're proud of it, you take responsibility for its success, and you believe in it. And if that becomes a very long-lasting thing, fantastic. But the truth is you can have a sense of ownership for as long as it takes you to get that work done. The other thing, I think we were talking about smaller teams, I think that it's not just a sense of ownership, it's also a sense of organization, because organizations are becoming less structured. And yet, to get work done, we have to be able to put in a structure. And so people who are working in these smaller teams have to be able to quickly make fast connections with the people that they need to collaborate with on a given project, and then make sure that work has a shape that can be replicated, that can be scaled, and that can be recorded and reported across lines in the company. And so I think that, if you have a sense of ownership, you're going to be proud to communicate what you're working on to other people in the organization so that everyone can stay on the same page, even as smaller teams are working on different chunks of business.
Carmen, you had an idea about this. You had some points. By the way, you used the word pride and being proud, and Jean-Francois just commented about that right at the same moment. So I like the fact that everybody's like really tuned in and connected on this. Carmen, something like that. And then Nathan had a very interesting experience to comment on.
Yeah, I mean, what Enrique says is what I really thought too, as well.
Okay. Yeah, Nathan, can you share what you were mentioning to me, like offline?
Yeah, of course. With Giuseppe and Bridging Value, we interview a future senior guy that is coming from a big university on business. And we talk about this, how he's experiencing today online learning, what he's seeing through the new lens of virtual learning, online learning, and what does he think about the future of businesses and working. And one of the points that stick on my mind is that he talked about how to keep with traditional relationships, traditional human face-to-face relationship after this. Everybody's talking about home working or virtual working, but he says, and it has a point, is that humankind is relationships. It's working, is talking to each other, having social life. So how do you see that this will happen in the future when everybody's talking about 30 to 40% of each of the businesses saying that the people may still work on an online situation?
Yeah. Carmen, Matthew, or Enrique, do you have any opinion about that?
I think it's sort of what I said, is that you have to be ready to make connections that are trusting, that are open, and that are fast. So you have to be able to sort of identify what it is that you can bring to a project, that your colleagues can bring to the project. How can you name it? How can you describe it? And that's important in the job search too. We talked about personal branding in our conversation the other day. And you have to really be able to identify what your strengths are and communicate that. And that doesn't stop when you get the job. When you're in the role, in small teams, changing projects, online, new partners, new collaborators, internal, external, whatever, you have to be able to communicate what you're good at and what you need to get the job done.
One thing that we can actually allow me to build upon this, I think we're going to see a lot of strengthening of partnerships across smaller teams within organizations. Okay. And so we will need to really reconsider the way we establish relationships. We will be like, each member of the team will be exposed of like a lot of bigger charges of work. It's not just mundane kind of work, because the mundane kind of work will be replaced by, some kind of software, some kind of AI potentially. But over time, like those soft skills, that EI, so that emotional intelligence, will be the one bridging the relationships between the different teams and different participation. We had an interesting discussion about that with Devin on a few days ago. And by the way, Devin is going to be our panelist. Devin, the founder of Rethinkery, is going to be the panelist for the next coffee break on the 22nd. And Claudia, the question you asked is the central question for the coming coffee break. So thank you for that. Nathan, can you share how we're doing with the questions? And so we can start looking at what's happening on Menti. And please do not forget to vote. So what's happening here, we see growth and potential and people. So growth and potential are the key words on our cloud. We see 23 people voted. So there might be somebody that still hasn't voted. Please connect onto menti.com and put the code 597644. And the following question was, Nathan? Wow, this is amazing. So where organizations should focus. And so work flexibility and technological enabling tools. So we see that the feeling of the audience is actually about really this work flexibility should stay there. We won't be talking anymore about work and family balance anymore, or private and personal life. Those lines are getting blurred, aren't they? What do you think, Carmen, Enrique, and Matthew?
I think going forward, it's there are four things that I have been talking about, basically over the past three years, and at least from the HR perspective, and it is focusing on people, aligning with the business, becoming more agile and innovative, and leveraging on technology to deliver optimal solutions. So, all of these things that are here fall within those categories. Work flexibility is focusing on people, technology, cultural agility. It's really across the board of people aligning with business and becoming more agile, leadership. So all of these very interesting results in here, I think, fall into these four categories that I call the new value proposition of HR, which is, again, people, alignment, agility, and technology.
Okay. And we see the cultural agility just went up, that just went up. And it's actually very interesting because Matthew, you mentioned like your personal brand. Carmen, you mentioned about culture. How do you see this? What is culture? What is the word of culture? What does culture mean in this new world post-COVID around, and talent, culture and talent? How do they align?
So I would say that the culture is the set of values that you have in common with the company, because as we talked before, employees, and things in a company, more or less they are like cookie cutters, like all the same. So in the future, or currently now, we are not going so much to the office. So we're going to look for the same type of values. Another thing that we are going to check in the future, we are already checking, but it's going to become more important. It's the personal brand that we should, at least comment, the personal brand that everyone has. And the digital footprint that we are going to have, it's something that the companies and employers are going to check the set of values that you have, because whatever you write, you post in any of the social media, it's going to make an idea to the company about your set of values and your type of culture.
Enrique or Matthew?
I think that cultural agility also has to do with the fact that, yes, global mindset has long been important, but now work is global. It doesn't matter if you live down the block from me. We're working equally distant as we would be working with someone in Australia. And you have to be able to negotiate the personalities and the paces and the conversations and the soft skill aspects of working with people from around the world, because yes, borders are closing around the world, but work is virtual now, and that's not going to change. So the opportunities to collaborate are going to be, we're going to see that cross borders probably more than ever, would be my guess. We'll see all sorts of new forms of professional level outsourcing and collaboration. And I think that that's something that is going to require previous experience, global experience and mindset that goes beyond just like having traveled. You really have to be able to adapt your behavior to work with people from other backgrounds and with other habits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's going to be very, very important to have flexibility. To me, part of the challenge of the workplace, the more rigid you are about something, the easier it is for you to break under the minimum pressure. So I think about this like, a bamboo tree. A bamboo tree is very, very, very strong, but you can bend it and bend it and bend it. I mean, of course, there's a point in which it breaks, but it can bend very much before that happens. So that's the kind of flexibility that I think we're going to need in the workplace going forward. It is for HR and for business leaders to set up the groundwork, the minimum infrastructure for the business to operate, but leaving a lot of flexibility in the middle so that companies, people, practices can be updated as they need to be updated. And let me give you one example of that. During coronavirus, most experts, I mean, even with all the unknowns that we have about this, most experts think that the coronavirus will be hitting the world in waves. So we are now through the first wave. They believe that the second wave is already coming to China and Singapore. So what's going to happen is that maybe, month number 1, you are hit by a wave of coronavirus. Month number 2, you reopen your company and you get people in. Month number 3, you send them to work from home again because there's a new wave of coronavirus. So you got to set up the minimum infrastructure to continue operating, but you have to leave a lot of flexibility to adapt and to bend, to the circumstances without breaking.
I think that's a really good idea. And I also think that, Giuseppe, in your provocation, you said that we're not going to be talking so much about work-life balance. But the truth is, I also think that we need to keep talking about that, because as work comes home with us, it's more important than ever to say, I'm not working right now. And in fact, maybe instead of workspace in the future, we should be talking about work time or work hours. Yeah. And how we set that space apart from the rest of our lives is going to become even more important. And I do think that I for one hope that that's going to be one of those millennial changes that's been trending along, that we're going to see much more adoption by companies going forward, given the new circumstances.
So if we take it from an angle, so just for the sake of time, we're like 6 minutes away from the end of the conversation. And by the way, it's been amazing. I didn't feel that it was more than almost an hour that we've been talking. So thank you, everybody. This is very, very energizing. One thing I was thinking of, like, okay, we've seen a major different culture mindset between corporations and startup. So you either are in a corporation or a startup, or you're an entrepreneur that is actually with a different thing. Do you see this situation blurring those lines, or do you see more like keep like going through this block? We have like online we have like different leaders that have been leaders in different startups. They brought startups to the next level. We have leaders in different corporations. We have entrepreneurs. So here we have different cultures. How do you see that? Because from our perspective, we think that everything is going to be blended. Now,
I kind of agree, Giuseppe. Jean-François speaking.
Yes.
Because I work in a big oil and gas company, about 40,000 people, etc. I'm vice president commercial for the Americas in this company for one of the business units. And since the pandemic started, and we've been working at home for 8 weeks now, all of us, and we realized that it works very well. And to answer to Claudia's fear about loyalty, etc., I'm not concerned about that because I can touch base with all my teams every day if I want. We have productive meetings. I can see what they deliver, etc. So I'm not worried about that at all. And what we see, what I wanted to say is that the people don't want to go back to the office now because they are used to work at home, to see more their wife, their husband, their kids, and there is a trend that is very clear. Even my boss told us the office is starting again next week, and we on the May 20th, I think now. And he said, but let the other business units go first. We'll see how it works because we lose a lot of productivity. We'll have to wear masks, three person per lift. There is a building with 3,000 people. It will take ages to go to your floor, etc. What's the point of going back to the office? Because we work as well as in the office for now. We deliver very efficiently, maybe more efficiently sometimes. And we are all comfortable organizing our time with our families. And so even being in a big corporation, you can get there and have a kind of startup mentality or way of working, provided that you still balance work and personal life. Because my son is 4 years old and he keeps reminding me everywhere that I work too hard. And he told that to my boss yesterday. He told to my boss, boys, stop working hard, boys. You have to stop. So and we have to listen to our kids as well because they are usually right. But what I'm saying is that I don't see a problem being in a big corporation and having a kind of startup mentality right now and keep going like that for a while.
Thank you for your contribution, Jean-François. This is spot on. I'm like, I was, when the pandemic started and you reimagine the RERA in Paris, going from Charles de Gaulle Étoile to La Défense, everybody packed up. It's impossible to imagine that. I don't think it's going to end. So this is going to, what you just said is going to impact infrastructure, the design of the city, the design, how much companies are going to save on less real estate. So this is like some of the big questions we're going to have for the next coffee break. Nathan, can you share the last questions? And I see that because we're going to have 2 more questions just to wrap up the seminar, and the code, the same logic, menti.com. The new code is 97262. And the first one is about what do you need to feel comfortable through the transformation and be as broad as you can. And the last one will be for you to rate the session, because definitely we want to have your feedback. So please vote on this one. And by the way, there's one question that I like very much, and this is going to be for as well from Don and from one from Don. Very quickly, Don, if you don't mind, asking the question what you just said, commenting that. Don?
I was trying to find, it was hiding from me. I apologize. Hello.
Hello.
So my comment, you mean, that I put into the chat?
Yes, please.
So I have been talking to other organizations, and some of them have highlighted that there's a potential for a hybrid, a balance of going into the office. So it's not really one or the other, but if we schedule a couple days, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it happens to be, then individuals that need to have those face-to-face interactions can schedule them during a certain period of time that allows for a lot more flexibility to have that work-life balance and to see your 4-year-old more, right? So there's a potential for a flexibility, whereas I feel a lot of organizations saw all or nothing. So just food for thought. That was just some of the comments and conversations that have been happening.
And
I want to say something about that, Giuseppe. I know people who love working from home, and I know people who hate working from home. Yes. I know people who hate working from an office, and I know people who love working from an office. So I absolutely agree that there will be that goes back to the idea of flexibility. We have to be very, very flexible in the approach to work. The problem that we brought from before is that we forced everybody to work in the same way. So we forced everybody to come to an office, even when 70% of the people may not have wanted to come to the office. So going forward in this blended reality that we're going to be getting into, I think what's going to be very, very important is that we find the ways to be very flexible and understanding of how people want to work. If some of them want to work from home 4 days a week and come to the office the other day, and that's okay, and they continue to operate and do the work, that's totally fine. Why not? I mean, you're saving real estate, you're saving energy, you're saving, it's more environmentally friendly. It's people commute less and whatnot. So at the end of the day, I think that what matters here is the flexibility to make sure that you include everybody in this new blended or different reality, if you will.
And just to, we're creeping into a little bit of extra time, and I think it's actually worth it if you allow another few minutes. Humberto, you mentioned something that, I think that will be central for a future conversation, but can you please bring the comment that you put on the chat for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking I work in a startup with a lot of data, and the biggest block.
Hello? We cannot hear you. Hello? Okay. The comment from Humberto was, how about the data privacy, data governance, GDPR compliance? From my point of view, these are going to be huge blockers when companies try to move to remotely operation. Well, it's definitely a central challenge. We would see, at least from our perspective, what we can imagine more investment in that kind of infrastructure than having actually office buildings. So that would be a shift in those investments. But please, Carmen, I think, Matthew, this is actually very central. That will be a completely different specializations from an IE perspective. What do you think, Matt?
Say that again. It was cutting out on my side.
No, I was saying, the fact that data privacy and data management will become even more central when people work remotely than working in the same offices. That was the central question from.
It's a huge issue. I mean, it's something we deal with as an international organization on a daily basis. It's a very complicated topic, and we're seeing it now with, the proliferation of new tools. Do we communicate through Zoom, through Google, through WhatsApp? How are we? I don't think there's a clear answer yet, and it is a risk for international organizations, especially the ones operating in Europe, as we know, with the GDPR. So I don't think there's a clear answer to how that's going to be resolved.
I believe that the databases are going to be adjusted by countries. So for example, we work with very confidential information. Like, for example, when we have a resume, in Europe, you can ask, like, are you married? You have kids? How old are you? I mean, things like that. In America, we can't. So for the same resume, let's say that if any of you are in our database, I cannot access to your age and your marital status, but my colleagues in Europe, they can check those data. So that's something that how we are working. I mean, but it's something that we are working a lot in every company about the data, the liabilities that we may have because with confidential data.
Great. I think we're already 4 minutes beyond the time. So I think we could actually continue this conversation. Let's go to the last question, and please, we can see the cloud, okay? And the cloud is central. It's about talent, Nathan, if you don't mind. Again, flexibility, resilience, technology, and talent. I like those words. I think that it's actually central. We really appreciate your contribution on that word. Please continue these conversations on the forum. So you can connect to bridgingvalue.com/forum or on the coffee break group on LinkedIn. So we have a great conversation on LinkedIn. So please sign up for that. We want to continue this conversation and prepare for the next one, which is going to be in 2 weeks on the 22nd, about the organizational transformation. So now not only talent, how the organization will change. And we'll have different panelists and Devin, who's actually today with us, is going to be one of the panelists. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you stay safe and sound and enjoy your time with the families.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us. And thank you for coming.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hello. Ingrid, Nathan.